welcome to our third episode of the Game Over Therapy, or our podcast, which is Not That AA. And I'm Allie.
I'm AJ, and we have a special guest today.
I'm Andrew.
We're so glad to have you today. So today we're going to do things a little differently since we have friends here and our special guest. We wanted to have everyone bring up a topic to talk about. So let's start with Andrew. What would you like to talk about today?
So I thought because Star Wars the new Star Wars movie has just come out recently, and this is podcast. One topic's being video games that we share our memories of Star Wars video games that we've had in the past.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Unfortunately, I haven't played really any Star Wars.
You've seen some of the ones at like the arcades, right? Like the one with the big screen where you sit on there with a little joystick.
Yeah, I don't really remember that. I mean, I've played Lego Star Wars, but
that counts. That counts.
All right, well, go on.
There's always one like rogue squadron, like you're at the like old arcade, and they have this like massive contraption, and it's supposed to like simulate like X-wings and things like that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Do they have that on console now, or is it still just an arcade thing?
Well, the arcade was always the most elaborate.
That's true.
Of them, really bringing back to the heyday of arcades. I guess there's like not much of that anymore. You know, you just have consoles. But I think like. I mean, Star Wars games have gone through like so many iterations over the years.
Yeah.
And I think like initially once people were like, oh, gaming's a thing, like they're like, okay, we gotta make Star Wars video games because this is just gonna sell.
Yeah.
So because there's so much there's so much variation there, and I remember some fond Star Wars video game memories from my childhood.
Yeah, I think for me, Star Wars has always been about recreating what you experience from the movies, like being able to fight like a Jedi and things like that. So I remember playing all the arcade stuff, but I think the most fond memory I have was for this game called Jedi Knight 2. I don't know if you remember that game, but it's kind of like a spin-off of Star Wars. It's based on some novel. And you get to play as this Sith guy who ultimately fights for the good. So you're like a good guy with Sith powers.
Interesting.
And it was really cool because you get to fight like as a Jedi. And like the lightsaber controls I remember were like one of the best I've ever played.
Really?
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that I think that game eventually just kind of got forgotten over time.
Right, that happens with a lot of these type of things. And I like I like that idea that you explore... like everyone kind of generally you're gonna play the Jedi, but then when you're able to explore the Sith, and that part of it, and then you're also able to explore some of like the numerous fan fiction that is out there with Star Wars. I think that's a pretty cool part of that. I
think it resonated with a lot of people because the way Star Wars portrays the characters, it's kind of like very black and white. You're either good or you're evil. But we all know that real life is not like that. There's kind of like a gray area.
Yes, definitely.
So that's kind of like what the game explores. Like, you're not really bad, but you're not really fully good either.
You're an anti-hero.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
So what about you?
Well, like I said, all I've played is Lego Star Wars games, which is kind of like the baby step into the Star Wars world. And they're pretty. The Lego games can be pretty formulaic, but I mean the way they incorporate like the feeling that you get from the movies. I mean, we just finished watching all three of the original movies, and the way they kind of incorporate, the personalities of the characters and everything like that, I thought was pretty cool. So to me, it wasn't so much about the fighting aspect, because that obviously wasn't terribly advanced like it isn't, or I mean, that's pretty typical for the Lego games, but I liked the focus on the story.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like little jokes. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Lego games.
Right,
like inside
jokes.
Very
very signature of Lego games.
Yeah, exactly.
I think a lot of the Star Wars games is it's mostly about you want to kind of be in the shoes of Luke Skywalker or any of them, and just kind of like experience that whole adventure. And so there were so I remember like a number of so on Super Nintendo they had a number of the Super Star Wars, and it was like, so for the first 3 original movies, and it was pretty much you just like what, it's like 16-bit, right?
Yeah.
It's just a 16-bit kind of you're doing exactly what you do in the movies, and it was set up as a platformer, I remember, and it was, you just kind of like, you have missions that go through each of the different parts of the films. And so I remember they had, I remember like playing them, and you'd like collect like thermal detonators and like, blaster upgrades, and I remember that was a lot of fun to play with.
Oh yeah, I can imagine that. I mean, I know this is probably like blasphemy because it involves the prequels, but I always thought it would be cool, and I don't know if any of the games, enlighten me, I don't know if any of the games have this as an option, but I always thought the like 4 lightsabers that General Grievous had, I thought that would also, that would have been like pretty badass to play with.
I don't know about that. Was there any game?
Oh, any games with, I can't.
Knights of the Old Republic, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. That's a, speaking of which, another great like Star Wars. Probably I would say at least in like maybe the top 3 of like best Star Wars games out there. Knights of the Old Republic, and then they did like kind of a sequel.
They did Knights of the Old Republic 2, and then it became an MMO for some reason.
Right. Yeah.
So, if you didn't know, Knights of the Old Republic is, I think, based in the Old Republic, so it takes place before even episode 1, right? That was like it was like years before that, and you're just playing through like, trying to explore the lore of how like the Jedi Council worked back then, and back then there was no empire, so it was just kind of like everyone's kind of out on their own, and Jedis were more, I guess it was a little bit less organized, like you kind of learnt your own way, at least according to the game.
Right. Well, in that, was there like a physical like Jedi Council, or was this prior to like the centralizing of?
Yeah, I think there was like scattered councils, maybe.
Okay, yeah, so it was more kind of like this tribe type.
Yeah, but you like sought them out after you already initiated your training. Yeah.
Okay.
And you built your own lightsabers and stuff like that. It's not like, the prequels were like magically, everyone was just handed one,
Well, I mean, they're supposed to start off in that little, as a youngling, right? And they're supposed to start their training young.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Right. One of the things I remember about Knights of the Old Republic was it was kind of more like an RPG.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't one of these first games that was like integrating like choices into, and choices kind of like affect the storyline in certain ways.
Yeah, and that one you can definitely go like off the deep end. You could be like this insanely evil person, or like really, really good. So let's see. I think, so those are definitely some of the best ones, and I think one of the most disappointing ones was Star Wars Galaxies. I don't know if you remember that, like the first MMO they ever come out with.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the major problem with that game is they made a Jedi class, and naturally, that's all anyone ever wanted to do. They wanted to become a Jedi, and they wanted to wield a lightsaber. So the game became horrifically imbalanced, and like, no one was interested in playing any of the other classes.
I know, they're like, who wants to be the cook?
Yeah. So
there were those positions?
Yeah, it was like some weird like professions.
Like
it was like it's like, do you want to be a Jedi and wield a lightsaber, or do you want to be a cook, or do you want to be a dancer? It's like, no.
Dancer.
Yeah, because there's those dancers, and in
right, in the
cantinas and the
cantina.
Yeah, but that's not like the first thing you think of when you're in the cantina.
Yeah, so
right?
I think
You know?
the concept behind Star Wars Galaxies, as I remember, was they wanted to say like, oh, there are like all these, you know, it's in the galaxies, and so there's all these different types of jobs and like people you can be. So they wanted it to be like an MMO that was like each person's kind of gonna make up like different parts of civilization.
Oh, that's interesting. And everyone wanted to be Jedis. So did they have like, you know, smugglers and bounty hunters?
Yeah,
Yes.
I remember
okay.
a bounty hunter class.
They initially made it really hard to get Jedi. So like anytime you rolled a character, it's like pure chance. That like it's predetermined and you don't find out until your character is like really high level. So people just replayed the game over and over.
Until they got to Jedi?
Until they complained enough where they're like, oh, anyone can start off as a Jedi. So they're like, no one played anything but Jedis after that.
Oh.
So
Right, yeah, so that didn't
work out so
work.
well. I tried it. It was like, you know, when you make everyone when everyone's special, no one is special, right?
That's true.
So that takes away from it.
And like it seemed like kind of ridiculous allowing I can understand why they would do the random pick to try to avoid that, but like you said, people just kept playing until they got the class that they wanted. Because like, I mean, honestly, who would be like, oh yeah, I want to be the cook? I mean, that's my complaint about that show, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., because it's like, who cares? You guys aren't the main guys. You know? That's just
Right,
my
they're
personal-
just they're kind of right. They're not. It's like, oh, when they say that we're not superheroes, but they're just kind of like they're trying to carry out the will of like Shield and everything, and it's kind of like this conflict with Hydra. I generally like the show, at least the past.
I liked
I haven't seen any of the new season.
the thought of the show, and then I actually watch all the episodes. But I think sometimes it's funny because they're like trying to make every character kind of like more like glamorous than they really are. So they'll be like, check out super awkwardly like smart IT guy, or like, you know, like socially inept scientist girl. And then,
I like their dynamic.
Yeah.
Plus I really like Elizabeth Henstridge. At least in the first season.
it kind of they kind
Things
of
kind of
got weird. Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm one of like the all or nothing type of people. Like, I don't care about the people working in the background. I mean, and someone, I forgot on what website, they're like, okay, now we have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and then next season we're going to have the copy guy at S.H.I.E.L.D., you know? And so I think it's kind of ridiculous if
I
you're
see your
not
point.
one of
I
the
see your
front and
point.
centers. Like, I just don't have time for you. So maybe that's a terrible attitude to have, probably. I mean, that's just my
I think people are like, I want more Marvel, and so,
that's just one way they're giving it to them.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really trying to make it stretch.
They're picking out a lot of like superheroes that like
Obscure.
I've never heard of before. Like the big thing now is Jessica Jones.
yeah.
Well, I know the
I-
show, but I'm not familiar with the lore behind Jessica Jones.
So some of the stuff that like I looked up, and I guess I was like, so prior to watching Jessica Jones, it was kind of like she's kind of like this superhero that's like kind of a fallen superhero. And it was like a part of it, but then she kind of gets like edged out of it, and so now she's kind of like she's on her own, and so they have the conflict with like her and the like major villain in the series, and then there's like and then the series also like focuses on it focuses on the relationship with her and Luke Cage, who's another superhero, and they're trying to build up like a Defenders miniseries with like Daredevil. I think it's Daredevil, Punisher.
Ooh, that sounds cool.
Arrow is Arrow? No, that's DC.
No, it's
Sorry.
DC.
Hello.
Yeah, so it's
It's
Defenders-
Hawkeye. They all have like some rando with a bow and arrow. So there's Arrow, the Green
Can't
Arrow,
fault me for
and
confusing the two.
Hawkeye. I mean, they're really like these kind of token, useless people who decide that their weapon of choice is going to be something from the Middle Ages.
Yeah, it kind
Instead of plague-ridden bodies, which would be way more effective.
I mean, like I kind of understand that. It's kind of it's kind of a little strange that it's like arrows, but I mean with like Green Arrow, that's they kind of like bring in like it's like it's like more high tech arrows, and it's like with bombs and so that's kind of like different things with it. I personally like towards the end of the last like Green Arrow season, I felt like kind of like this is. I don't know. People are like, this is gonna be around for like 7 seasons. And I was like, I don't think I can sustain my interest.
Well, yeah, because you're kind of like, okay, there's only so many things you can attach to an arrow, and it was
true.
kind of like the most like the Age of Ultron movie where they're trying to make Hawkeye more interesting, and so it's like, no, he's not interesting. Well, I mean, he's marginally interesting, but he's like the least snazzy person in the Avengers. And you can't all be Iron Man. That's just the way.
I hated that part. Like, you spent the whole first movie kind of hating him for betraying the Avengers. And the second one's like, let's bring in his family that no one asked to see, and let's try to make it more personal. I was like, why did they do that?
Who cares?
It's so random.
It's filler.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they probably have figured out is like, people just love superheroes so much that they can put in like, filler superheroes or ones that are kind of a little off of the mainstream of both DC and Marvel.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're really going, and sometimes I think sometimes it works. So like with Ant-Man, I thought like Ant-Man's definitely kind of like an off
he
hero,
is off, and I think I'm convinced, and I haven't seen the movie, but I really want to see it. I am convinced the only reason they were able to make that fly was because of Paul Rudd, because everyone loves Paul Rudd.
It's true.
And like it's kind of him and like Nathan Fillion, like everyone loves them. Like, so they could be in the most ridiculous piece of crap, and everyone's gonna love it.
It was the perfect cast, I would say.
Yeah. Because that actually, I was never interested in Ant-Man. See, like, I grew up with my mom being this huge geek, and she knows all of the lore behind everyone. And I'm curious, and she's curious too, to see what they do, like, with the Scarlet Witch character, because she really likes the Scarlet Witch. And she really liked the Vision, which is, Jarvis. So what he became. So she's really curious to see how that ends up, and I am too. But I think with Ant-Man, it's the little bit of the lore that I've heard. It's kind of like, well, I guess it's okay, whatever. But I think they needed someone that everyone loved to make that fly and to make people watch it.
Right, and also the fact that I think Paul Rudd's really funny.
Yeah.
And that the character is kind of like in that way, and he plays it like from watching the movie, like he plays it really well. That it's not like compared to like Iron Man or something. Even though Iron Man's kind of like throwing around these like one-liners every now and again, but it's very much kind of like serious. Like superhero business is serious, where like things on Ant-Man I feel they're more fluid and it's a little like it's a little off, and it's more lighthearted with things.
Yeah, and like casting is such a big deal. I mean, I have this rule in my head that once you get cast as a superhero, you're stuck with that superhero. You can't play another one. So I remember I was all like piss and vinegar when they cast Chris Evans as Captain America, even though he's a good Captain America, but it's like, look, you've already been Johnny Storm. You're done. Okay, you're done. And like same thing with like
Ryan Reynolds.
With Ryan Reynolds, with he's been Deadpool, and then he's Green Lantern. Both of them were terrible. And
well, so with that point, that's cross universes.
That
right?
true, yes.
So is cross universes
It's like that's
okay?
Maybe
is that the loophole there?
Yeah.
But like, I also was all like pissed off when they cast. First of all, I hate Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck, if you ever hear this, I hate you. And he was terrible in Daredevil, just god awful. And Daredevil is a cool character. But he was so terrible. Oh, am I like, is it blasphemy? I was like, you don't love him, do you?
I thought it was just really funny because, yeah, like, the original Daredevil movie was like, such a hardcore letdown.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have general letdowns, like, Fantastic Four, the original one, not the reboot.
Yeah, I was like that. The reboot is not a general.
Oh, and another point out there, Jessica Alba, you're not fooling anyone with that blonde hair and those blue eyes. You're a little Mexican girl. Well, even though you don't like to admit it, you're a little Mexican girl. Just deal with it. I'm a little Mexican girl too. You know what? There's no shame in that. There's no shame in that game. Okay.
Yeah,
continue.
I thought that like that Daredevil movie. I mean, yeah, it was like I think people were like people were really excited. I remember they came out. People were like really excited for it because like not Superman, but Spider-Man was like, oh, this is like. I always felt like Daredevil was kind of like an offshoot of like Spider-Man because they're kind of like near in geography, and so yeah, like people came on with it, and then it was. It was like Ben Affleck, Jennifer Garner, and she was Elektra, right?
Jennifer Garner was okay as Elektra. I mean, that's because when she was really, that was when she was like at her peak with Alias and stuff like that.
Right, yeah.
So, and that was great. And she was pretty good as Elektra. And just Ben Affleck was just terrible. And I can't imagine why in God's name would they make him Batman? That just really
It's supposed to redeem him. We'll find out.
No, he can go suck a fat dick because he is terrible. I mean, even in like ones where he's critically acclaimed, like Argo and Gone Girl, I didn't even think he was that good. And so he's nowhere near as talented as Matt Damon, first of all.
Sure,
and
yeah, I agree.
I'm just like, because the Batmans that we've seen, you know, you have the original Adam West, who's really campy, but that was meant to be campy. And I loved that show. It was really good and really funny. And not to mention great villains, like, you know, Cesar Romero as the Joker and, you know, all the Catwomen, which were amazing, like Julie Newmar and Eartha Kitt and stuff. And I think it was Frank Gorham or Gorsham or something as the Riddler. And Burgess Meredith as a Penguin. Yes, I remember. Anyways, but that was campy and great. And then you had, you know, a lot of people didn't think that Michael Keaton could pull off Batman because he was originally like more of a comedy actor. But he did a great brooding Batman for the Tim Burton movies. Yeah. And Val Kilmer in the third one, even though that movie started going more into the campy territory, he played the part and looked the part very well. Like, he was what you would expect of a Batman. Very tall, very fit, very, like, kind of dark, but not too dark.
Right, yeah.
George Clooney was a complete miscast. He was way too old, or he looked way too old, and he just thought... It looked like everything was a joke to him, but everyone who was in those movies hated them, so... Let's see. And then Christian Bale. I love Christian Bale, but I don't care for his Batman that much. I like his Bruce Wayne better than his Batman, especially because his Batman voice sounds like he just gargles rusty nails in the morning.
Yeah, like what was up with that? I don't know. Like, why it was like such a stark difference in voices.
Yes.
And yeah, I felt like. It was like the demon whispering every time he spoke.
No, I expected him to wheel up his little cart of oxygen, you know, because he talks like, you know, he has like COPD and emphysema.
It's like, wait a second, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone get him his inhaler.
Yeah. But Ben Affleck, I mean, just really, really.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I guess he also fits the cross-universe loophole here, right?
I guess. I'm still not feeling the hard reset, though. I know you're trying to sell the reset, but...
Yeah, they're really trying to, like, go further in the comics with the Batman versus Superman.
Yeah.
Type stuff. And yeah, I mean I remember like when they released that casting for that. Yeah, I know a lot of people were upset.
I was
like,
one of those people like, what the fuck? Yeah,
I was like, I'm pretty sure they could have picked someone better, but.
Oh well, we'll see.
Because, like, I can understand, okay, and going back to Chris Evans, he actually was a good Johnny Storm, okay? It was a terrible movie, but he was a good Johnny Storm. And so I can see why they would be like, okay, well, this guy's done a pretty good job with a superhero before. Like, why not stick him as Captain America? And he has the all-American look. Like, that
I think that was the thing.
When you see him, he's like, boy next door, all-American, drinking Bud Light and grilling hamburgers and has a wife making apple pie in the kitchen. Very, like, all-American. But with Ben Affleck, it's like, oh, wow, look at this guy totally took a steaming dump all over Daredevil. Why don't we make him a more iconic character, like Batman? And
yeah, I don't know what that was all about. Yeah, I mean, they need to like, they really need to like work on some of these
at least they cast a decent Superman. Was it Henry Cavill?
Yeah, is it pronounced Cavill or Cavill?
I've heard it both ways.
I don't know, but he does look like Superman.
Yeah.
They've had gorgeous Supermen, because, like, I guess that's a prerequisite for being Superman, is being breathtakingly gorgeous. Because you had, of course, Christopher Reeve in the 80s, who was beautiful. And in the show, you have Tom Welling, who's beautiful. And then now Henry Cavill, or I pronounce it Cavill, so whatever. Henry Cavill, who's also beautiful. And so...
And then, do you know who the guy was? There was that other Superman movie, like, before they did the reboot.
Oh, Brandon Roth or Roth?
Oh, Ruth. Oh, yeah, it was Brandon Ruth?
Yeah.
I think so.
Interesting. So we're uncovering... this is yet another... Now, he does not fit the loophole. So, because he's the Atom in Green Arrow.
Oh, okay.
So he tried to do the jump, but didn't quite make it.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, he's in the.
I haven't seen that much of Arrow, so.
Yeah, so I've watched up to like Netflix what they offer.
And,
that's usually what.
Yeah, and AJ has too. I saw like a few episodes, and I'm like, not really feeling this too much, and so then he started watching more of it. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So.
All right.
We totally went off track, but I liked it.
Yeah, it was a great topic. Thanks for bringing that one up.
Sure thing.
So my topic is kind of reminiscing, since it's kind of the end of the year now, coming to a close. I want to know what everyone's favorite and best memory in high school that they're most fond of.
Who are we starting with?
Let's start with you.
You want to start with me?
Yeah.
I think you've heard me say this before, and it was, I have two fondest memories. Well, one of them is more like a set period of time. Like, my senior year in high school is when I did musical theater, and so that big production that year was just such an amazing time for me. But if you're talking about specific moment, I would have to go with my graduation, because my walk-in partner was someone who I had had a crush on for a long time and who I was in love with years after graduating high school. And we got to sit together because we had to sit with people from our same honors level. And so he and I got to sit together. He asked me, actually. And we got to sit together for the whole thing, and we held hands for most of it. So it was kind of like, and he and I had been friends for a long time, and so I don't know. I really thought that was really special at the time.
Yeah, high school romances, they tend to burn pretty bright, right? You tend to remember those for a longest period of time.
I feel like that's a really loaded question. Yeah, but I think that's true. Like, even you like really hold on to this like person, like even way after, like
even if it
anything.
was like silly, or like you find it silly later on, or if it didn't work out, you still look back on it kind of fondly.
I
Like
think it's because, like your big love in high school, it's a very clean love, like a more innocent love, like before you have all the complications of adulthood and being on your own and everything, where the only thing you have to focus on is, school and having fun,
for some of us, more of the fun than school.
Yeah.
I definitely fell into that category.
But I think it's like, I don't think you ever, that if you do fall in love with someone in high school, whether it's requited or unrequited, in a way, you kind of feel like you never really love anyone again the way you loved that person. Obviously you fall in love again and you move on, but there's always that kind of like little special place for that person.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, when you're younger, I think it's less likely that you love someone because of some ulterior motive, right? You're not loving someone because of their social standing necessarily, or their financial standing, or you're not doing it to gain like political capital or anything like that. You love that person because you saw something in that person that you really cared deeply about.
Yeah, you were just like you just kind of. It's also that time where you like really felt I felt that like pure attraction, and and like you get those. I think everything's kind of like new, and people are like, I have no idea what I'm doing out here, and so they're like really nervous all the time, and you get like your heart is like racing really fast, and I think as you kind of like go along and things are kind of like more boring, and now it's like, okay, I have to like really gauge these things because maybe what can happen, or you're seeing like this person is acting a certain way towards me, and I think that like predicts how they will act in the future, and so I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
So I'm not like, so you're more like in tune with these things as you kind of like go on, whereas like in high school it was just like you just like look at the person and we'd be like yeah and just like nothing else kind of
you're in the moment
lost.
You're totally swallowed in the moment. I feel that.
Let's see, my high school memory that I'm most fond of, I think there's a lot, especially I remember my school, and Andrew remembers this. We're with always the same group of friends, right? We always did things together after school or on the weekends. We always went to a boba shop on the weekends, or we would sit around school and spend hours deciding what we're going to do after school. That was a thing we did a lot. I certainly miss those, but I think something I'm most fond of has to be that last week before graduation when we went to Disneyland as a group. Because, so for our school, our graduation trip was to a local amusement park, which is Disneyland. And I think Disneyland was something that I didn't really, go to all that often and not necessarily care for that often. But I think when you go with someone that you like really care about and are really close friends with, it really changes kind of like the meaning of the park. Like I remember us just like, the time just flew by that day. I don't know if you remember much about that day.
He's like, no.
Yeah.
it's a while ago.
It was like we went to Disneyland.
That's exactly what I was about to say. I said he's probably thinking to himself, Disneyland? When did we go to Disneyland?
Yeah, you open these like old pictures up.
I was like, I've seen pictures of it. I know you were there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that day in Disneyland. It was it was a pretty fun day. I remember, and I think that we just hung around, and people were kind of like doing their own thing, and it was like a precursor to like the freedom is coming, and and so it was just like all letting loose of that, and I think that like all the seniors knew this is what's happening, and so like everyone was like pretty excited about it, and I think that's more than going. I mean, Disneyland was fun, but like the implications of it were.
It's
like,
symbolic in a way, because when we went, we weren't really followed closely by supervisor. We were just free to do whatever we wanted with our friends for like basically, I think till like midnight or something like that. Yeah, we just had free reign to do whatever we want. So it was kind of like, taste of adulthood, kind of.
Yeah.
It's like, you're on your own now. You make your decisions on what you want to do. But I think it was also kind of a sad moment because it's, like you're all moving on and everyone's going to different places and we all went to different schools. So it's like also that last hurrah you had with your close friends before you took off.
Oh, now you're making it all sad.
It's not sad.
I know. I just see that like one kid there, see like like AJ there, and he's like, oh, like with the bus leaving, and he's like, where's everyone going?
It was not like that. It was not like that.
I was like, I don't remember hearing about this, but yeah, Andrew just made that up.
Yeah, well, high school was that was an interesting time.
For those of you who are in high school, if there are any high schoolers listening, enjoy this time because it's all downhill from here. Like you may have some good moments in college, but it won't be as like thoroughly good the way high school was.
I felt the peak, at least for me, was that first year in college in the dorms.
Oh really?
Yeah. I mean, high school kind of sucked for me, and I mean, we do have fond memories of high school, but I felt like after I got out and I went to the dorms, and it was just like it was there with like lots of people, and things were just going crazy. And I felt like, oh, this was like the best.
Maybe it's because I went to a more local college, and so I still lived with my family while I was an undergrad.
Yeah.
So I didn't really get to do that let loose type of thing. And also, AJ was saying that I probably enjoyed high school so much because I was one of the popular kids. And he said, like the test was high school one of the best times of your life? And I was like, well, yeah, hell yeah, it was one of the best times of your life. He's like, okay, then you were one of the popular kids.
That's pretty true, right?
I think that's true. I remember suffering a fair amount of humiliation and bullying in high school and stuff like that. So
that stuff's getting worse every day. I think like people are taking it. So the whole cyberbullying thing is making it more easy for people to gang up on people.
Yeah, I think the major problem there is with social media.
Yeah,
and it's like before it was people could people were always going to make fun of another
people were always
person.
going to talk about you. Yeah,
it's just with social media, it's been facilitated and can like happen and it can go viral and instantly. And so like whereas your like humiliation before was it would be like maybe a small group of people and then they would like tell each other, and so it would be like kind of slow, like it'd be slower to
spread.
Well, and you can put a face to it. You're like, I know who's the one that did it. Whereas online, people hide behind the wall of anonymity. Yeah. And they feel like they can be empowered to say anything they want. So, but anyway, if you were to pick one happy memory out of all of that, what would it be for high school?
I'm gonna have to go with similar towards the end, but I'm gonna go right to the end. Was our grad night. So
okay.
If you recall, so our school had after graduation, they wanted to prevent people like going out drinking and driving, and so the school they transformed the entire school, and we had this like school that was like outdoor, very very Southern Californian with outdoor and connecting like classes.
Yeah.
And so it was a pretty big campus, and so they transformed like everything into this like huge carnival.
Oh.
And so there was a lot of like cool stuff in there. People were like playing blackjack, and you got like tokens and stuff to like gamble with. And
That was a fun night.
my dad was one of the dealers.
Really?
I remember that.
You remember
I
that?
remember that. Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah. So that was pretty fun. They had like all this stuff. They had like a massage parlor in part of it. They had like food everywhere, and all the stuff. And one of the things I just like remember that was kind of like freeing is I always I was this like extremely painfully shy person in high school, and like I still am shy now, but like there's been progress over time.
Yeah, you don't strike me as a shy person, but I don't know.
Well, AJ probably knows.
I was really shy too in high school, so
Yeah, I think that for anyone listening out there that's like, oh, I'm so shy, I'm shy to a fault. I think if you like focus on and saying like, oh, I want to be less shy, then and you try to like put yourself into situations where like you're kind of out of your comfort zone, and trying to like work on it, then you'll get more like outgoing. And I remember like that was like a goal like in college, and so I did kind of like try to work on that. But I remember like in high school, like I never wanted to like talking to girls really sucked, and just like all these things, and I really couldn't. I really felt like socially, I felt like really closed in, and it's like socially claustrophobic, and stuff, and that I was like, so I remember like that night we were like just there was like dancing in there, and I remember it was like one of the first times which like I was just didn't really care about like what other people thought, and so it felt like really freeing.
I remember we danced with a couple girls that night, and it was like it was different because you used to be so shy, or you're worried about like what are they going to say the next day, but it's grad night, anything goes, and you're just kind of like why does it even matter anymore? I'm not going to see these people like tomorrow.
Like ever again.
Yeah.
It was like screw it. I know it was great. That was a good memory.
Yeah. This is how good that night was. I started the night off, I don't know if Andrew remembers this, getting stung by a bee. And it was swollen like all night, and I forgot entirely about it.
Really?
Throughout the night, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was a great start to the night. I was just like waving around, and the bee landed on my hand. It was like, pow, right there. And it was like the size of a golf ball, like when we left the following morning. But yeah, that was definitely a really good, interesting memory from that time.
Yeah, period. And I think like they had that grad night, and it like lasted until like 6 a.m. or something.
Yeah, we left and it was like the sun had come up.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I think what's most special about that too is it kind of lets you see the school in a different light. It's not just the place you went because you had to, to learn or whatever. It was a place where you met friends, and
it was pretty austere. Normally, it was a fairly old school. I think it was like built in the 70s or something.
Yeah, It's weird seeing your art class like made into like some carnival thing. It's like you can have fun here. But anyway, what's your topic, Ellie?
My topic, and I'm guessing we're going to kind of crunch this because this is one of our longer podcasts. So, horrible bosses or bad experience with bosses.
Oh God, where to start?
Since we're kind of most of us, hopefully, and hopefully those of you who are listening, get a little bit of break, for the Christmas holidays and New Year's. It gives you time away from your bosses. I'm sure everyone has like ridiculous stories about bosses, what was expected of them, and the bosses just being crazy. So let's talk about that just briefly.
I guess I'll start since you guys started on the other topics.
Yeah.
Oh man, I could talk about so many different bad boss experiences. I feel like maybe it might be a little incriminating to talk about all the specific details. But, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have had terrible experiences. Unfortunately, that's just kind of, I guess, a part of American work life and being an adult. But I think the worst experience I have was with a particular employer where I worked at for a while, where, you know, for most places where you work at, they'll give you an annual inflation raise, you know, usually like 2 to 5% to account for inflation over a year or increase in cost of living. And I remember this workplace sent out an email saying that not only will there not be a raise that year for anyone, they thanked us for voluntarily giving up our raise so they can build a new building. And it was like, what? I don't remember voluntarily signing up for this. And then they're like, and then to top that, they're like, you know, it would be really great if employees took the initiative to donate even more money to help us build this building. And I was like, really? Screw you. You not only took away our raise, you're asking us to give you money? I mean, that was just like the worst experience I ever had with an employer.
Okay. Andrew?
Let's see. One of them, I have an interesting one. I used to, so when I was in college, one of the summers I worked as a tutor. So for this like tutoring center, this as a private math tutor, and so pretty much it was like teach kids algebra in order so that they can get into like a 4-year college or something. Like it was like they've already been accepted. A lot of these people were like on athletic scholarships and things, and it's like, but they couldn't pass algebra or something. So it was like, oh, you need to like do stuff. So you need to like tutor them, and slowly I remember it wasn't really teaching so much as my boss kind of came in and said or suggested that we need to like, you just need to like do the tests for them, and so they're like really like crossing ethical boundaries here, and I remember like I remember like feeling really uneasy about it, but it's like, you know, I kind of need the money. So I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And I remember like what happened is they had like these tests, and they were supposed to be like signed. It was supposed to be like, oh, like you sign that this person is like taking the test, and like things all going right. But they just put like a few tutors in a room and just like, you know, like we just did the test and like we just did the algebra, and we were just like doing these people's like assignments.
Oh wow.
And so I think what was happening was like things were getting, I think she was like, we were getting paid our like normal rate, but I'm pretty sure she was being paid under the table.
You think? Really?
Yeah, just maybe a little bit.
You know what that
We're
reminds
shocked.
me of? It totally reminds me of Suits, where like he used to take like the LSATs for people for money. That's basically what it is, except on a much lower level.
Right. Yeah. And I remember just after a while, I was like, I had some friends that still like worked there, but I was like, okay, I need to like quit, and I eventually did. And I had a friend that still worked there, and she told me that this like tutoring center got like raided, and like the police came in and like shut them down.
Oh my god.
and like this person was, I don't know, like dealing with like fraud charges or something.
Oh wow.
Because they found out that he was like totally like
Shady.
defrauding things. Yeah.
All right, well, Andrew's definitely winning on that one.
Well, mine I think is not so bad. It's more of a pet peeve annoyance in that at least the way I work, I consider my boss and my coworkers exactly that, my boss and my coworkers, and then maybe friends later on. I mean, obviously, you know, when your personality syncs with someone, you know, you become friends, whatever. But I've had some bosses, more than one, of course, who wanted the workplace to be just like one big family. And so they have all these like get-togethers. And there's this one boss who wanted to have a party, but it was really far away. And it was just ridiculous. The expectation was ridiculous for us to take so much time out to go to this party. And the thing is, all sorts of things were shady about it. Like, it's in the middle of nowhere, and, you know, there's like crazy neighbors who shoot trespassers on site and stuff like that. So it was just like having to decide, it's like, do I really want to put myself in danger to get a shitty white elephant gift? And like, no. Anyone with a shred of sense would be like, no, this is ridiculous. I'm not doing it. And not to mention, like, the day that it was happening, I had a whole bunch of other crap to do that day anyway. And there was no way I was going to, like, drive, like, I don't know how many miles away it was for that. And it was just, it was a bad day to begin with. Like, I was feeling like shit, and I just wasn't in the mood to go.
I don't know why people, like, do that. Like, they just, like, people will often expect, like, oh, you can just do this. Like, it feels like they, if it's something that's, like, way out of the way.
Yeah.
They'll just, like, they're kind of selfish in that regard. They're like, oh, yeah, like, oh, I don't care, like, what you're doing that day, or, like, how much, like, it can kind of, you know, conflict with you.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, it's like kind of, I want to throw a party and I want you there, so, like, yeah, like, oh, yeah, no problem.
Exactly. And, like, I mean, I tend to be, like, more low-key about throwing parties. Like, yeah, if you can come, why not? If you can't come, then, you know, whatever. But, I mean, like, AJ and I here, we live in a really central location. We live in the city, and so do you, Andrew. So it's not like, if we invite people to our places, it's like, it's not that big of a deal because, you know, we're around everyone anyway. But, like, when you try to get people going out to the boonies for something that is not, you know, like a $1 million giveaway, then it seems kind of ridiculous. And, I mean, I'm hoping, like, I mean, I don't think, I personally, if I had, like, a property way in the middle of nowhere, I don't think I would ever expect any of my colleagues to go out there, because I would think that that is unreasonable.
Yeah, you know? I agree. Like, it's a little much, and also the problem is, like, so if you have, like, your boss is throwing a party, and then it's like out in the middle of nowhere, and then he's asking, like, his employees, his or her employees, to, like, come, then so I think it'd be different if it's like colleagues at, like, the same level.
Yeah.
And you feel like, then they're like, oh, it's like you're just your colleague. We're at the same level, so I don't feel like something bad will happen to me.
Yeah.
Or I'll be, like, guilted, or like, there'll be more friction when I come back from vacation if, like, I didn't go to your party.
Yeah.
But if you're, like, an employee, you even if it's not true, you still feel that way.
Yeah.
And I know, like, this is kind of, we've had, like, parties in the past where, like, yeah, our boss wants to throw things for us, but it's like it's during times where, like, people are really busy.
Yeah.
And so, but it's like, okay, well, I have to, like, go, because if I don't, like, I don't know, like, you just don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, and I decided, like, I think when I was at a lower level, like, I definitely kind of gave in to bosses a lot more, but I've kind of worked my way up from, like, experience and everything like that, and so I'm a little higher on the totem pole than I used to be, and so it's like, you know what, you can think whatever, this is what I think I should do, and this is what's best for me, so You might just have to deal with it.
it's probably I do feel like it's an experience thing because I've noticed like other like if we have like more senior people and then it's less like and it's like I don't really want to go and then you just don't and it's like kind of nothing really you think like nothing really happens to you but as being like if you're a more junior person
you're stuck.
I think like if you're just like I'm not going to show up I feel like this is dangerous. It must something like nothing might happen to you, but you never know. I feel like if you're more junior, you're more susceptible.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, technically speaking, it's illegal for bosses to do that. It's in the rules and bylaws of many organizations, but it doesn't stop them from doing that.
Yeah.
Because they consider it well-intentioned, even if it may or may not be. So, right. Well, I think we all had good topics today. Thank you for listening. And for those of you that are listening to this over the holidays, happy holidays from all of us. And thank you for joining us, Andrew.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yes, today we were not that AAA. Because we're all AAA.
Right.
Yeah, not that AAA.
But anyways, thank you for listening to our podcast, and we will talk to you later.
All right.